I stood at the edge of the courtroom, the weight of my bronze star pinned to my chest like a silent oath. The room was full, buzzing with low murmurs. I wasn't there as a defendant or a witness. I was there because I had been subpoenaed to testify in a federal case I knew too much about. I noticed him before my name was called, Judge Morrow. Stern face, silver hair slicked back, eyes that scanned the room like floodlights. I'd seen his name in the papers over the years, always attached to some hardline ruling. "Call your next witness," he barked. The prosecutor stood. "The government calls Sergeant Major Elijah Trent." All eyes shifted to me. I straightened my back, adjusted the lapel of my coat, and walked forward with quiet confidence. But just as I was about to take the stand, Judge Morrow narrowed his eyes and spoke, "Sergeant Major, remove that medal before entering my courtroom. This is a court of law, not a parade ground." The room went silent. You could hear the ticking of the wall clock. My hands didn't move. I didn't blink. I just looked at him, and I said nothing. Because I didn't need to. A deputy shifted beside me, unsure whether to step forward. The judge's words still hung in the air, sharp and final. I said, "Remove the medal," Judge Morrow repeated, tapping his gavel once, not out of order, but authority. "This court doesn't allow military decorations on the witness stand." I slowly turned to face him. "Sir," I said calmly, my voice even but deliberate. "With respect, this medal isn't for display. It's part of my uniform. I earned it under federal orders, and I wear it by regulation." There was a pause. The judge's jaw tensed. "This is my courtroom, Sergeant," he replied, leaning forward. "Regulations don't supersede decorum." That's when the prosecutor cleared his throat, visibly uncomfortable. "Your Honor," he began, "Mr. Trent's service was reviewed prior to his summons. His presence here, including the uniform and medal, was approved by federal counsel. He's not just a witness, he's a government asset in this case." The judge leaned back, clearly annoyed that the challenge had come from his own side. "I don't care if he's the Secretary of Defense," Judge Morrow snapped. "In my court, no one flaunts military ribbons for sympathy." That did it. A tall man in the gallery stood up, one I hadn't noticed before. Sharp black suit, unassuming presence, until he spoke. "Actually, Your Honor," the man said calmly, "that medal doesn't flaunt anything. It confirms his level of clearance." Judge Morrow blinked. "Who the hell are you?" The man reached into his jacket slowly, then displayed a badge. "Office of the Director of National Intelligence." "Sit tight, Judge. You're about to understand exactly why that medal is the least of your problems." The courtroom shifted in a single breath. Gasps. Murmurs. Chairs creaked as people leaned in. The bailiff took an instinctive step toward the man in the suit, but stopped cold when he saw the badge more clearly, an unmistakable federal seal, the kind that didn't show up in normal courtrooms. Judge Morrow paled slightly but kept his composure. "You're out of line," he said stiffly. "This is a closed proceeding." "Not anymore," the man interrupted, his voice calm but firm. "By executive directive, this hearing has been flagged for federal observation. That includes my presence, and his." He nodded toward me. Judge Morrow hesitated. I stood still, hands at my side, saying nothing. I didn't need to speak anymore, this wasn't about my testimony now. It was about the line the judge had just crossed. The federal agent walked slowly toward the bench, never raising his voice. "Sergeant Major Trent's presence here wasn't just coordinated, it was mandated. You've just ordered a decorated intelligence operative to strip identification protected under national defense protocol. That's not a violation of court decorum, sir. That's a federal offense." The judge opened his mouth, but no sound came out. "You didn't know," the agent continued. "That's clear. But instead of asking, you assumed. Instead of showing respect, you tried to humiliate a veteran in front of a federal courtroom. And you did it on record. I saw something flicker in the judge's eyes, realization. But it was too late. "I'll be contacting the chief judge and submitting an immediate report," the agent added. "In the meantime, you are instructed to recess this session and remove yourself from the bench pending review." A long, painful silence followed. Then, the gavel, once defiant, tapped again. Softly this time. Hesitant. "Court is recessed," Judge Morrow muttered. He stood. But no one else moved. Because everyone was watching his career walk out the door behind him. The door behind the bench swung closed behind Judge Morrow, but the echo of his exit felt louder than the gavel itself. No one in the courtroom spoke. The court reporter had stopped typing. The jury sat frozen, eyes wide, unsure if this was still reality or a scene from some high-level political drama. Even the defense attorney, who had spent the last 2 days challenging my credibility, looked pale. The agent turned to me. "Sergeant Major Trent," he said quietly, "you may proceed with your testimony. A new judge will be appointed shortly." I nodded once, stepped up to the witness stand, and sat. I didn't adjust the metal. I didn't need to. What came next was all business. I gave my account clearly and directly, classified names redacted, field data summarized, chain of command detailed. It was everything they needed to know about the corruption inside the defense contractor they were prosecuting, and more than enough to bury the case. As I spoke, I saw something strange in the faces of those watching. Not pity. Not surprise. Respect. When I stepped down, the prosecutor offered a subtle nod. The jurors followed me with their eyes until I exited the stand, as if still processing what they just witnessed, what they had almost missed, had one man's ego been allowed to dominate the room. By the time I reached the door, the agent walked up beside me again. "Trent," he said under his breath, "that was handled better than most generals I've seen." I looked over at him. I wasn't here for him. I was here for the truth. He smirked. "Well, truth just ended a federal judge's career in about 90 seconds flat." We both stepped out into the hallway. Behind us, silence still ruled the courtroom. The hallway outside the courtroom was cooler, quieter, until the elevator doors opened and 2 men in dark suits stepped out. They weren't press. They weren't attorneys. They moved with the same quiet precision I'd seen in Kabul, Langley, and Andrews Air Force Base. The agent beside me gave them a subtle nod. "They're here for the official review. Morrow's not going home today." One of the men approached the courtroom doors, flashing credentials at the bailiff without a word. The other stopped in front of me. "Sergeant Major Trent?" he asked. "Yes." I wanted to say, "Thank you for maintaining your bearing." Not many would have kept calm in there. The agency noticed. I didn't respond. I wasn't interested in praise. I just wanted the process to finish. He reached into his inner pocket and handed me a sealed envelope. "Hold on to this. It's for you, and only you. No copies, no scans." I took it without a word. Behind me, the courtroom doors closed. The new judge hadn't even entered yet, and already the entire courthouse felt like it had shifted. It was as if one act of unchecked arrogance had cracked the building's foundation. The agent I'd entered with turned to me. "You did what you came here to do. If you want, I can have a car take you back to base." "I'll walk," I said. "Been sitting too long." He smiled faintly, then extended his hand. "Good work, Elijah." I shook it. Firm. Brief. Professional. And then I stepped outside into the sunlight. Civilians passed by, unaware that just moments earlier, a federal judge's legacy had been erased, not by force, but by the quiet refusal of a man to bow to disrespect. I glanced down at the medal on my chest. Still there. Still earned. Still untouchable. 3 weeks passed before I heard anything official. I wasn't looking for news, but it found me anyway. A sealed memo arrived through classified courier at the base, addressed directly to me. Inside, there was no letterhead. No signature. Just a single sentence printed in bold, courier font, administrative leave converted to retirement, Judge Morrow will not return to the bench. No headlines. No cameras. Just silence. But inside federal circles, everyone knew. I later learned that Morrow's history had been under review for some time. Mine was the spark, what followed was the fire. Old complaints resurfaced. Unsealed transcripts. Whispers from veterans' organizations about how they'd been treated in his court. One agent told me off the record, "Your moment was the last straw." They were just waiting for him to give them one. I never saw the man again. As for me, I returned to teaching field ethics at Quantico. Quiet work. Honest work. Every now and then, I catch a trainee glancing at the ribbon on my chest with curiosity. I never explain it. I don't need to. They'll understand someday. Because sometimes, power doesn't come from shouting. Or fighting. Sometimes it comes from standing still, and letting the truth speak for itself. 2 months after the courtroom incident, I got a phone call. Not on my personal line. Not even through base communications. It came through a secure channel only a few people knew still worked. "Sergeant Major Trent," said the voice. Calm. Female. Sharp as a scalpel. "This is Director Vance." I stood up instinctively, despite being alone in my office. "Ma'am. I've read the full report. I wanted you to hear something directly from me." There was a short pause. Then she continued, "You upheld the integrity of this country better in a single courtroom than some have in a lifetime of service. You didn't raise your voice. You didn't need to. That's why the system still works, because men like you still exist inside it." I didn't know what to say. But she wasn't finished. "You should know, Morrow submitted a request for private arbitration to salvage his pension. It was denied unanimously." I exhaled slowly. Not from relief, not from satisfaction. Just finality. "He'll never wear the robe again," she said. "That door is closed. And this one," she added, "is open." There was a chime, an encrypted file had been sent to my terminal. "You're being considered for liaison work," she said. "International. High level. Quiet." I didn't answer right away. "You don't have to decide now," she said. "But think about it. There aren't many people left we trust at that altitude. And your voice has already proven what it's worth." The call ended. I sat in silence, staring at the flickering message on the screen. "Mission request, clearance required." I didn't open it that night. But I didn't delete it either. Months passed. I'd turned down the overseas assignment. Politely. Respectfully. I wasn't finished here, not yet. Something told me my work on the ground still mattered. Quiet influence could echo further than loud authority. But the story didn't fade. Not really. Veteran forums started talking. The medal incident, they called it. Whispers spread through military circles, how one man's silence and one judge's mistake shifted the balance of a room without a single raised voice. They asked me to speak at a private military ceremony, not the public kind with parades or cameras. A closed-door event for senior officers and operatives. I almost declined. But when I arrived, something stopped me cold. At the entrance, on a small black pedestal, rested a single medal under glass. Not mine. His. Judge Morrow's honorary retirement medal, revoked and surrendered. Stripped of its honors. No longer listed in the Federal Archive. Below it was a plaque that read, "Symbols matter. But it's what you do when no one salutes that defines who you are." They asked if I wanted to say a few words. I looked around the room, men and women with decades of service in their eyes. Some limping. Some decorated. All silent. I walked to the podium and said only this: you don't wear respect. You earn it. That day, we all remembered why. Then I stepped back. No applause. Just nods. And that was enough. Because that courtroom wasn't just a moment. It became a message. A year later, I visited that courthouse again. Not to testify. Not for duty. Just to see. The old brass nameplate that once read, Honorable J. Morrow, Presiding Judge, was gone. Replaced with a new one, different name, Younger Judge, clean slate. But something else had changed too. Subtle. Almost invisible to most. On a side wall near the gallery entrance, there was a new framed document titled, Courtroom Code of Honor. It listed revised protocols, recognition of uniformed service members, protection of federal clearance apparel, prohibition of personal decorum rulings over classified designations. At the bottom, it read, ratified in response to a federal compliance review, case ref, 112 SMT. SMT. My initials. They'd baked the moment into policy. Quietly, without headlines. Later, as I left the courthouse, the clerk at the security desk, someone I didn't recognize, gave me a nod as I passed. Welcome back, sir. She didn't ask why I was there. She didn't need to. Because what happened that day had gone far beyond one man, one gavel, or one insult. It had become part of the building. Not a scar. A correction. Years later, I sat in a quiet VA office, helping a young corporal fill out paperwork. His hands were shaking. Not from fear, just uncertainty. He was transitioning out of service, unsure of who he'd be without a uniform. Before he left, he glanced at the small display case on my shelf, the one with my bronze star. You always keep that there? He asked. I nodded. Never take it down. He stared for a moment, then said, I heard a story once, about a judge who tried to make a vet take his medal off in court. Guy refused. Said nothing. But it changed everything. I leaned back slowly. Is that so? He grinned. Yeah. I don't know if it's real, but I think about it a lot. I looked him in the eye. Keep thinking about it. One day, you might be in a room where silence says more than a speech ever could. He stood, thanked me, and walked out. A minute later, the hallway door clicked shut. I turned to the metal, its gold surface still catching the light just right. And I smiled. Because the metal had stayed on. Not just that day in court. But every day after. I didn't know the story would travel as far as it did. But it did. Military academies began using it during ethics seminars, not naming me directly, but referencing the scenario as a case study in discipline, respect, and restraint. One seminar called it the quiet reversal. Another, authority meets integrity. Meanwhile, Judge Morrow's name faded. His records were sealed after retirement. He never appeared in federal circles again. No memoir. No redemption tour. Just silence. But for those who were there, for the jurors, the attorneys, the clerk, the bailiff, they remembered. And quietly, I heard that other judges started changing how they opened court. Not with a gavel. But with one simple sentence, we thank those who've served. That was enough for me. No medals. No spotlights. Just change. Because sometimes, the most lasting victories don't come from battles won, but from dignity held. And if there's one thing I learned that day in court, it's this: when you've earned something with your life, no one gets to take it from you. Not with a gavel. Not with a robe. Not even with power. Because respect? That's something they can't order off.